this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. Well, it seems like African immigrants, illegal immigrants, are having a hard time, especially in New York. I don't know if you can see the caption here, but it says, "If I knew I had to work this much in America, I would have just stayed in Africa." So apparently this is an African immigrant, a young lady, and she's saying that she's having to work in America. Now, it's been floating around that some of the immigrants came to the United States because they thought they wouldn't have to work. Now, I don't know where this comes from, but I believe some of this has to do with the lies that have gotten around the world. They have made their way around the world that Black Americans don't work. We don't have to work. We get free food, free housing, free clothes, free money. That we're living the life of Raleigh over here in the United States, and we don't have to work. I believe that that is a part of this mentality of everybody running here because they won't have to work. Because let's face it, working is not all that great. Some people might enjoy their job and enjoy working, but for the vast majority of people, they're working to make money, to make a living for themselves. And the question of whether or not you really want to work or like to work usually doesn't enter into the minds of most people because it's necessary. You have to work, end of story. But when people sell a fantasy, a lie, that you can go to a place in the world where you can have decent housing, good food, clothing, and they'll give you money, who wouldn't jump on that? And I do believe that that is some of what's going on here. People coming here thinking that they won't have to work. Lisa Cabrera did a video not so very long ago of an immigrant from Latin America who said he didn't come here to work. And he was doing some kind of internet scam. I don't know if they've caught up with him yet. But that's the story for many of these immigrants, especially these illegal immigrants. And New York City seems to be the landing pad for a lot of disgruntled, illegal African immigrants. I just watched a video of a man, seems like an Italian maybe, in Brooklyn, New York, and he was railing about the fact that there were immigrants standing in line to get food. There were tables set up, and they were giving out food. And it was a long line of them. And he said not a single one of them speaks English. And he was just going on and on about not wanting to give them any food. Now, a lot of those immigrants were Black. They were African immigrants. And he said that they come into New York and they don't even know how to speak the language. And they shouldn't even let them in if they can't speak the language. So that's what they're getting now. So some of the Africans in New York are having rallies where they're protesting the treatment that they're getting in New York. It is their belief that they should be given work visas right away, better living conditions, food to their specifications, and they should have translators for everybody from every African nation that doesn't speak English, because that is what they expected that they would have in New York. And basically, they're saying you need to get on the ball. A reporter from CBS reported on one of the rallies, and he said, now many of these newcomers have begun to notice that affluent liberals did not actually intend to follow through on everything they promised when they piously proclaimed their status as denizens of a sanctuary city. In other words, they went yelling to the world that they were sanctuary cities, some of these cities did, and they are welcoming of migrants. Well, they got them, and now they don't know what to do with them. The conservatives and the Republicans are blaming all of this on Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the liberal Democrats. So they're responsible for some of it, but they're not responsible for all of it. This has been at least the last 20 years we've been having this influx of immigrants. And now it has reached a point where it's uncontrollable. And these politicians are pointing fingers at each other because these Republicans, especially the ones that own building construction companies and landscaping companies, they have been bringing these illegal immigrants in here from Latin America and working them for low wages since Reagan was president. It started then under President Reagan. It didn't start with Joe Biden, but now it seems like it's every year it increases. And you have Chinese people coming now, Africans coming, and they're coming up through the southern border. And they haven't done anything about closing that border. Donald Trump screams about closing the border, but apparently he didn't do a good enough job because that's where they're coming in from. This has become a real issue in America. Now, this is something that I got from the Atlantic, and I'm just going to read a small portion of it. The first American immigration laws were written in order to keep the country white, a goal that was explicit in their text for more than 150 years. Now, a lot of these black immigrants don't believe that, but our immigration laws were written to let white people in and keep everybody non-white out. So over time, the understanding of whiteness changed and expanded. Well into the 20th century, only those of Northern and Western European descent were considered white. Italians and Jews, for instance, were not. Even after the laws were finally changed, allowing large numbers of immigrants from Latin America, Asia, and Africa into the country starting in the 1960s. The eugenic ideas that supported earlier versions of them remained embedded in our society and still provide the basis of many modern restrictions. Now, when we tell African and Caribbean immigrants that the United States only started letting them in the 1960s after the Immigration Act was passed, they think we're lying. No, we were coming in before then. No, you were not. The immigration laws were written to keep this country white. And that sentiment of keeping America white has not changed. So people think as long as they're not a black American, they're good. And they won't listen. They don't realize that if you're not white, you don't get any preferential treatment. One of the other black content creators reported that the African migrants in New York were complaining that they were being treated like black Americans. So I don't know who's going to tell them. I believe they've been going back to Africa, talking about them being model minorities and how much better they're doing than black Americans. Something is going on that they think that they're supposed to come here and make demands. And I don't believe that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did that. Now, they might have gotten some misinformation out there, but I don't believe they told them to come here with the arrogant attitude that some of them seem to have. And if things don't go their way, they start screaming racism and xenophobia. And they really think they should be treated better than American citizens. Somebody needs to have a long talk with these people. America has been a panacea for whiteness, not for brownness or blackness. And I think the only group of people who really understand that, other than black people, are Asians, and even some of them try to inch their way into whiteness. And the reason I say Asians is because the United States Congress passed several Chinese exclusion acts from the 1800s into the early 1900s, trying to keep the Asians, Chinese, Japanese, all of them out. And so therefore, they understand what time it is, even though they do try to jump into whiteness whenever they can. But that's the paradigm for what America has been. So those African immigrants in New York City are going to have to accept the reality. If they come to the United States, they're going to have to work, and they're going to suffer not only the discrimination and the other isms that we suffer, but they're going to suffer them more because they have a language barrier and a cultural barrier, and they don't listen. So they are going to either have to sink or swim, figure it out on their own, or maybe they'll have to go back home like some of them, like those in Chicago, are doing. Fox News just reported that some of those immigrants in Chicago said they're going back home. It's cold up there, and they're bouncing from shelter to shelter. It's nothing like they thought it was going to be. So a lot of people are going to have that wake-up call. But anyway, y'all, if you see any black immigrants, tell them that if they're going to stay here, they're going to have to work. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, and as always, have a great day.